Hello and welcome. It's Lucy from Inclusive Change at Work, our community interest company, and we are talking again about digital safeguarding for young people. We're going to be talking about the Castle Conference, and what's going to be going on there is that on the 25th of April 2024, we are holding a conference at Leigh Court in Bristol, talking all about digital well-being for young people. We're covering a whole range of topics, and I've been speaking to our key speakers and our exhibitors over the past few weeks to find out more about their perspectives on this particular topic. And today, I'm going to be talking to somebody in a little bit of a different way. So today, I'm going to be talking to Owen, who's my daughter, and somebody who I admire greatly because she teaches me quite a bit about staying safe online, but also thinking about my mental health and well-being when we're online. So, hello, Owen.
Hello.
We've just been talking about this off air, haven't we, or offline?
Yeah,
And this feels a bit weird, doesn't it?
yeah, because you're my mum and you're like interviewing me very formally, and it doesn't feel right.
I will try not to make it too formal because we don't need it to be. And maybe we can just think of this as a conversation.
Okay.
All right, then shall we try and have a conversation? Because the idea with this is that it'd be great for people to hear your story and why digital safeguarding for me is quite important is partly because of you. So if I start with Owen, can you tell me a little bit about you? Like, how old are you? Let me ask you a bit more of a clearer question, because to
Yeah.
ask somebody, tell me a bit about you, is really challenging. It's really difficult sometimes because you're like, what bit of me do you want to know about? Do you
Yeah, it
want
could be
to
anything.
exactly? Do you want to know what music I like? Do you want to know where I go to school, which I don't? Do you want to know, what I do for my hobbies? That's a big question, isn't it? The
Yeah.
tell me a bit about you. Okay, all right. So I thought actually that we could perhaps talk about some of the things that make you a little bit unique and probably things that aren't quite traditional in the way that you have grown up and maybe your school. Not tell me where you go to school, but tell me how you go to school, or what do you do for your education?
Okay. Well, I do online school. I've been doing that since year 8, I want to say, so 2018,
Yeah,
because I had a lot of mental health issues
yeah.
as a child and young teenager. So going into secondary school was a lot, and we had the opportunity to do school online through alternative provisioning, which is amazing. So
It's worked really well for you, hasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah. And when we say about those mental health issues and the challenges that you've had, I know about them because I'm your mum and I've been around with you pretty much through it all, in the ups and the downs. What do you mean by that?
when I was younger, about I want to say when I was 9,
Yeah.
started to develop a lot of depression, a lot of suicidal thoughts, anxiety, and that just kind of got worse and worse until I was about 11, when it kind of reached its peak, and then kind of started to simmer down a bit as we went through a lot of therapies, left school, transitioned, did a
Yeah.
lot of things.
There were a lot of things that went through
Yeah.
our life in kind of about 6 years, I think. So I think 11, it probably didn't simmer down at 11. Just
Not
kind of
not not that much, but that's kind of where I think it reached its peak as I
mm,
went into year 7.
yeah. So going into year 7 was really quite a big challenge, wasn't it? And it was something that we hadn't really expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's something we haven't said yet, is that you're neurodivergent.
Yeah, I'm autistic. I got a diagnosis very suddenly when
Yeah.
I was 11. We weren't expecting it in any way whatsoever, but once we found out, it was kind of glaringly obvious.
Yeah, the glaringly obvious, I remember very much so. But yeah, the suddenly, I remember that too. And that one day we went in to meet somebody and she just kind of said it to us.
Yeah, they kind of opened with it as if it was
We knew.
common knowledge.
And we all kind of looked at each other. Me, you and Dad looked at each other and kind of went, no, nobody's ever said this to us before.
Have you got the right information
Yeah.
there? You talking to the right person?
But then after we found that out, did things start to get a bit easier?
Slowly, yeah, as
Yeah.
we kind of start to figure out why I was feeling sometimes the way I felt.
Yeah. Yeah. And there were lots of therapies, weren't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
A lot.
our family, we've had up to 20.
Yeah. It's a joint effort.
Yeah. Yeah. From talking therapy, art therapy, drama therapy. What's been your favorite?
Equine,
Yeah, the horse
because
therapy.
horses are nice.
I'd give it a little bit of a big shout out actually to Jenny at Small Strides
Yeah.
and her equine therapy and her trauma informed approach over there. So she's based in Bitton, which is kind of on the edge of Bath, but some people would say it's between Bath and Bristol. But fantastic. That was a massive, massive help for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, you tried to go into mainstream school at year 11. Oh, sorry, no, not year 11. Sorry, year 7.
Yep.
That didn't go quite so well, did it?
No.
No. No, we got an EHCP for you, which is an educational health and care plan, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that made a big difference, didn't it? Being able to be educated at home. How has that helped you? How has that been?
It's been great. It gives me a lot of free time.
Yeah.
Obviously a lot of free time that went towards therapies for a great portion of it.
Yeah.
A lot of independence, which works great for me.
And you study online with Apricot Online Learning?
Yep.
Yep. And they provide tutors. And so you study in a timetabled way, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you kind of do a lot of study yourself and you're really motivated to study, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you would say that because I'm your mum and I'm talking to you.
Yes, I love studying. I do it all the time.
But being online has been a big part of your education then, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think without it, I'm not sure you would have been able to engage in traditional education, traditional school.
Yeah, definitely not to the extent that I'm able to online.
Yeah. And tell me about your GCSEs.
I did 5 GCSEs, so I managed to get 7s, 8s, and 9s, which
Yeah.
I'm quite proud of.
Yeah, you did a really good job at your GCSEs, didn't you? So, and now what are you studying now?
I'm studying A levels in history, sociology, and English literature, which are all going great.
We're here to talk a bit about digital well-being and some things that can make us feel pretty rubbish about being online, particularly young people and particularly young people who might be neurodivergent. So you did something quite unusual when you were, what, 14, 15? Let's talk about that. What did you do?
Okay, well, back in, I want to say 2021
Hmm.
autumn, I decided to just completely get rid of my iPhone and I just used a Nokia, just like a cheap Nokia brick thing ever
Yeah,
since.
yeah. We call them the burner phone or the brick
Yeah, I
phone.
probably look a bit dodgy, but I think my coloured hair kind of offsets that a bit.
You don't look dodgy at all. It's fine. So you gave up your phone. You gave up your smartphone.
Yep.
Why?
Well, around that time, I started to really properly pay attention to just how much time I was spending on it, and I was racking up, I think, about 8 to 10 hours on average a day just on my phone. That's like outside of watching the TV with my family or playing video games. So I felt like that was just a bit dystopian, if that's the right word. It didn't feel very good, and so I decided I wanted to cut down on that. Spent a few weeks getting my screen time down and then just completely got rid of my phone because I felt like I didn't really need it anymore.
Wow. And when you say you were spending 8 to 10 hours on your phone, what were you doing on your phone?
All sorts of stuff, mostly social media. I've never been someone who actively posts or engages on social media. I've just always been a lurker, just for entertainment purposes. I just spent hours scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, or as it was known at one point, Musically,
Oh, I
when it
remember
was
that.
that just cringy tweens and teenagers lip syncing to random songs and coming up with stupid
Which
dances.
sounds really innocent back then. Now it's a very
It
different
wasn't
place.
always.
What do you mean by it wasn't always?
There's always going to be dodgy people on any social media platform, I think, even if it seems innocent.
I remember a time when there was a whole craze around 7 awesome kids.
Oh yeah,
Tell me
on
about that.
YouTube. there were these YouTube channels that are insanely popular throughout like the early to mid 2010s. I used to enjoy watching them. The sax channels. It's kind of what they
That
got
was
deemed
SAK,
as.
SAK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The SAK. Do not mishear me. Which stood for Seven Awesome Kids, and they had 7 super girls, which I think every day another, normally teenagers, between kind of in between maybe 11 to 15-year-olds would post a video that they come up with
Yeah,
every day.
they were like funny little
Yeah, and
skits
it just
or
seemed very, innocent. They were just fun videos to watch growing up. But a huge scandal happened, I think, in 2016-17, where the owner of that channel was also outed as a huge creep. Yeah, not very good guy.
yeah.
And growing up, you just assume that parents run things like that. The kids manage the channels themselves, but
Turns out no.
clearly they didn't.
Turns out no, it was this guy. And there is that element of innocence, isn't there? That you think what you're watching is kids and their parents managing these things.
Yeah.
And it may not be. You dig a bit deeper and there's a little bit more behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in my world, we talk about safeguarding. And that's one of the elements is kind of understanding who runs a channel, who is behind it. Is it just the kids' faces on there? Those kind of things.
Because you can always assume.
So we've kind of digressed from your story. We've kind of digressed from the giving up the smartphone thing. At how old were you? 14, 15 years old?
Yeah, I'd say about that.
Yeah, I think so. Was it a quick decision?
I mean, I'd say in the grand scheme of things, it was fairly quick. It was like 2-3 weeks. I thought about it and then just did it.
Wow. And when you did it, why did you think it would help you?
Gave me more time to put towards other things that I needed to do at that point, like study for my GCSEs that were coming up very soon.
Thank God you did give it up then, because you did okay there. But
Yeah.
so giving you some more time to do stuff. How did being on your phone make you feel? So we were talking about some of the things that you were doing. You were saying you might scroll through social media. How did it make you feel?
I wouldn't say it made me feel like obviously bad, but it did make me feel bad, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't clear that social media was an issue because I wouldn't watch something and then get upset by it.
Yeah.
But it kind of just, like, it didn't give me time to think or process my own thoughts or feelings that I was obviously dealing with at that point.
Yeah.
And so I think getting rid of that gave me that time to think.
Think and process
Yeah.
your own emotions.
And being autistic, I think something that also contributes quite a lot is that overstimulation that you get quite a lot of the time. Because I'm a very easily overwhelmable person anyways. Give me like more than 2 sounds going on at the same time and my brain is a bit fried. And so having that constant, just non-stop jump from one video to another video to listening to music to playing a video game, it just kind of, I think, built up and caused a lot of overstimulation up there.
Had you read or watched something that made you make that decision to get rid of your smartphone?
Well, when I first kind of realized just how bad I don't want to say addiction, but I'm going to say it, to my smartphone had gotten, I was doing quite a lot of research into how to limit that, like tools and tips that other people might have used, of course, using the internet.
The internet is not a bad thing for those kind of things. And where do you find information otherwise? Where do
Yeah,
you go?
exactly. And so I found a lot of good, helpful tips, and I also found a community of people that kind of just completely got rid of their smartphone and used quote unquote dumb phones, which are just very basic, can phone, text, play Snake, that sort of thing. And so I thought that was kind of the drastic decision I needed in order to get myself together.
what happened when you got rid of that phone then? So those first few days when you didn't have your iPhone, because did you literally hand it over?
Yeah, to an extent. But as I said, over the weeks beforehand, I'd already limited my screen time down to about maybe 1-2 hours on it. So it was still a jump,
Yeah.
but it was easier to acclimatize myself to.
Yeah. And so how would you manage to limit your time? So what did you do to help limit your time on your phone?
I think just tracking it, finding other ways to spend my time, because growing up, that was kind of my free time. I would play video games with my brother and then just watch YouTube. That was like my days.
Sitting here as your mum,
Don't feel bad. I enjoyed doing that. That was my decision. And then where was I?
how you minimized your
Oh
time
yeah.
and yeah.
Finding other ways to spend my time, and I think just like sheer willpower. It was something that I was interested in, and so I just
That's
did
one
it.
thing, yeah, that's one thing about you, is that if you are motivated to do something, you will make it
I will
happen.
do it.
Yeah. You even had your own YouTube channel, didn't you?
Yeah, when I was 9,
Yeah,
I
about
started
that.
it for about 2 years. I was very into it. It's something that I forget sometimes now because
Yeah.
it's not a part of my life anymore. But I had a YouTube channel. I managed to rack up over 1,000 subscribers, and I made a whopping £60, which as a child is like,
That's big
it's
money.
amazing.
Getting a check from Google.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
I then spent it on, I think, books and DVDs and random toys. So
Exactly what a 9-year-old should have spent it on, to be quite
yeah,
honest with you. But there were lots of things that you were doing online, and that was part and parcel of who you were at
yeah,
that time. Listen to it as your mum, actually. That can be, it's really hard to hear, and it's really hard to go, okay, what could I have done different?
yeah. But I think it's important not to beat yourself up over that, not to look back with regret, because all those things made me who I am now. And it's a case of we didn't really know the extent of how it was going
Yeah.
to affect people because it was so new and recent.
Yeah.
Like only 2005, I want to say, is when YouTube was created.
True.
So growing up with that was unheard of until maybe my generation.
So it was almost like an experiment, which
I
makes it
mean,
sound
maybe you
even
could say
worse.
that.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right then. So I'm going to ask you about some of the practical things. All right. What did you do then to replace the time that you spent on your phone? What things did you try and start to do?
Well, at the time, I think I'd really gotten into reading again,
Yeah.
so that kind of took off.
Yeah. Because you didn't read for a long time.
Yeah,
And that was almost worrying for us as parents, but we kind of were trying to understand your autism, we're trying to understand who you were, how to support you, and there was no pressure to read, but you really didn't read for
yeah. I think for a while I also just didn't have the mental willpower, the mental
yeah,
I don't want to
desire.
say capacity, but
Yeah,
like desire. I didn't want to do anything.
yeah,
You know, I
you were
was I was
depressed.
depressed for years. I wanted to lie in my bed and watch YouTube videos for hours on end.
Yeah, yeah, and I just wanted, this is pretty personal and pretty raw, but we just wanted you to be alive.
Yeah,
And that there was no forcing you or making you do anything. That it was small steps
yeah,
every single day, with the therapies and the adjustments that we made to life. I'm not going to dwell too much on those deep bits there, but we
yeah.
can,
That's for another
that's for
another
another,
session.
definitely for another chat. Okay, so you got back into reading.
Yep.
I would pretty much say that you are an avid reader now.
Yeah,
What do you do
I go
now?
through a lot of books.
Yeah. On average, how many books do you read a week?
Maybe about one a week. I feel like that's average.
Yeah, but that's whilst you're doing your studies at the same time.
Yeah,
And you've been studying English literature.
yeah,
I actually never thought that that would happen. If you'd have asked me when you were 13, 14 about whether you would you study English past GCSE, my answer would have been no.
yeah. It would have been no.
Yeah.
I hated
So
English for a while.
yeah, yeah, and maths. It was all really, really difficult. And now you're studying English literature.
Yep.
Favorite author?
Don't know, maybe Jane Austen
Yeah.
or Shirley Jackson, I think are my top 2.
Okay. Have you got a favorite book?
Dracula.
Definitely got to be Dracula. You've always said that ever since you read it, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So a lot of reading. What other things did you find and try and find out?
Did a lot of baking. Started going out on walks a
Yeah.
lot, which helped with agoraphobia, getting
Yeah.
out of the house.
Yeah. Because you were agoraphobic for a fair
Yeah. I
good
think
years.
COVID really drove it in, but
Yeah.
just never wanted to leave the house alone. And so getting out on walks kind of helped to overcome that
Yeah.
to an extent.
And I think you found a real love of nature
Yeah,
and being outdoors.
definitely.
Yeah. That those kind of things you might not have found out had you still been scrolling on your phone, had you still been spending 8 to 10 hours on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did it make you feel when you realized I'm no longer on a smartphone and I'm doing other stuff? How did that make you feel?
I just feel like it gave me a lot of mental clarity. Like I had a lot of
Wow.
time for myself
Yeah.
to think about, you know, myself and a lot of the mental health issues that I was still overcoming. And so it gave me the time to process that and come to terms with myself.
Wow. Okay. So let me ask you, all right, how do you feel now?
Great. I feel very happy.
And how would you describe your mental health now?
Great. There are still obviously issues,
Yeah.
but it's barely anything.
Yeah. You your happiness, I know and I can see as mum, is just remarkable.
Yeah.
And I know how happy and how strong and resilient you are.
Thank you.
Yeah. I see it, and I'd go so far as that you help the rest of the family now.
I am the life coach.
Kind of the life coach that when we have challenges, it's like, okay, what would Owen say? That's kind of a phrase of what would Owen say about this?
Yeah.
And you can be really, really mature and helpful about it. Anyway, I'm not here to give you the therapy and feedback, but nevertheless, that happens. Do you miss anything about having a smartphone?
At the moment, no, but there
Mhm,
was a period in which I did. I did go back to an iPhone, which
mhm.
my brother now uses because I didn't need it anymore.
Yeah,
Because I wanted a camera for photographs,
yeah,
and because going to college to study animal care,
yeah,
which I did for a few years, a lot of QR codes, a lot of like Kahoot quizzes and online stuff to engage with that I couldn't actually engage with because I didn't have a camera on my phone.
yeah, yeah. I
So I
think,
guess it's just that barrier.
yeah, and it's about recognizing actually if you're in a school or college and the college is saying, oh, click on this QR
Yeah,
code
it's
to
hard.
access this. How can we enable kids who don't have a smartphone or don't want a smartphone to be able to access stuff in the same way? Really difficult, but maybe a question for another conversation with an educator, perhaps.
Yeah, someone who's more qualified
Yes.
on that subject.
How do you listen to music and stuff on the go?
I don't.
Okay.
Or I have an iPod which I use now, but I think that's another thing I used my iPhone for a period, but
Yeah.
when I'm out and about, I just don't listen to music.
No. But if you want to listen to music, because music is a thing you do enjoy, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've gone vinyl.
Yeah, I have a record player that I use, so I just steal yours and dad's records and CDs.
And I think I could quite honestly say you have delved into the, let's just say, the drawers of the man drawers or the woman drawers, whichever way we want to put it, and found our old gadgets. And you found an iPod shuffle and an old
Yeah.
iPod.
Yeah, which I need to like do up so I can actually use the actual iPod
Yeah.
because the shuffle is very limited. I think you get 1 gigabyte of storage,
Yeah.
and you just it's the luck of the draw what you listen to. I think for 2 weeks I listened to Judas by Lady Gaga and Come On Eileen on repeat because they were the only songs that it actually gave me.
So that tells you a bit about probably the music that was on there
Yeah,
beforehand.
it's
Yeah.
only it's only the music that you and dad ever bought on iTunes, so I've got a very limited pool of music to take from.
Okay. All right. Are there any other things you miss about having a smartphone at all? Is there,
Not really. I feel
No.
like I get on just fine without it.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Okay. There's another question. Do you use other tech though?
Yeah.
You're not.
I have a laptop, obviously, because I
Yeah,
need tech for my school. I do online school.
yeah.
And I have an iPad as well. So
So you still use those. What kind of things do you do on the iPad? Do you have apps? Do you?
yeah, I have apps. I mostly use it for taking notes on my lessons or
Yeah,
art.
yeah,
That's kind of most of what it gets used for nowadays. Laptop, obviously school,
yeah.
sometimes entertainment. I do still watch YouTube. I don't just shut myself up from social
The
media.
world.
I do enjoy it,
Yeah.
but I tried to not get too obsessed with it.
No. How about Animal Crossing?
Oh, I love video games. So I think Animal Crossing is one of my number ones. Animal Crossing and Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah,
So video games are something that I've never really like limited myself on. I did when I did my GCSEs.
yeah,
I just didn't play them for that month. But
yeah.
I'm not the type of person who can sit and play a video game for 2 hours straight because I get tired.
Time to stop.
Yeah,
However, I will say that
I used to. I
yeah,
used to spend like all my free time playing Beat Saber. So
I remember Beat Saber. However, let's dwell on that a little bit. Let's think about that because that was at a time when you were restricting your eating at the same time.
yeah,
And so Beat Saber, you weren't going outside, but you were restricting your eating and playing Beat Saber excessively.
yeah, and
Let,
Just Dance.
let's and Just Dance, yes. Let's
Which I never touched outside of that period of my life.
Yeah. And at that period of your life, I think that was probably one of the darkest periods. That was probably the eating restriction, excessive exercising,
Yeah.
and yeah, that was pretty hard, I'd say. Let's just explain what is Beat Saber.
It's VR, so you have a VR headset on and you
Yeah,
get your controllers
yeah,
and you basically just have to hit these
yeah, the
blocks that fly
beats.
at you to the beat. It's very fun. I feel like I have muscle memory. It's ingrained into my brain anytime I hear Panic at the Disco.
Yeah.
I think we're one of the ones that came out at that time that I
I
was playing it. And every time I hear the songs, my brain just wants to start swinging my arms around because I played it that much.
I did enjoy it as well,
Yeah,
actually. That
it's
was good
fun.
fun. Yeah, it was good fun. And what other ones do you say? Just Dance. I think most people would
Yeah.
know what Just Dance is. And Kingdom Hearts.
Oh yeah, that's just it's kind of like a cross of Final Fantasy. I'm saying this as if the people listening to this know what these games are.
Yeah.
It's just it's like a role playing game, fighting combat, but you're in Disney worlds. So
Oh, well, if you're in Disney World, it can't be. Yeah.
yeah,
There we go.
it's
What
just
more can
fun.
we ask? Okay. All right then. Okay, I'm going to come to sort of my last section now.
Okay,
What tips would you give anyone who is thinking about giving up their smartphone?
go for it. I mean, if you're thinking about it, it's probably a good thing to do. At least if it's just for maybe a week, a month, but just tailor it to yourself. Just because I did it and it worked great doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone the same
No.
way. I do online school. I don't have like that peer pressure to stay in touch via social media. I don't need to use it for marketing or networking. So I don't need to be on social media at all.
Yeah.
And so that made it very easy for me to just give up my smartphone, give up easy access to that sort of stuff
Yeah.
because I just don't need it.
Yeah. I think so. You've actually come up with a guide to simplifying your
Yeah.
digital life.
Yeah, I did it after reading Cal Newport's Digital Minimalism. It was
Yeah.
very heavily inspired by the approach in that book. So if you're gonna do it, also read that. I
Yeah,
want
it's
to
a
give
good.
him some credit.
It is a good book. Cal Newport, Digital Minimalism.
I think he writes it in a very easy to understand
Mm,
way
mm.
instead of just reading loads of like essays on the subject, which isn't always accessible to people.
Yeah. But I would say actually that book was written a few years ago.
Yeah,
And I think I'll be interested to see whether his approach has changed. And maybe we can do a bit of research
yeah,
later.
because just seeing how much
Mm,
TikTok in particular
yeah.
has really taken off. Like you see it on the news.
Yeah.
They talk about the
TikTok.
hot
Yeah.
TikTok products. You go into a bookstore
Yeah.
and there's a table dedicated to TikTok. It's just so interesting to see how prevalent it is
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. Well, they call it book talk, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole different talks about lots of different things.
Everything talk.
But in the guide that you've written, it's a short kind of journal guide. You've got a number of stages or a number of steps, haven't you?
Yeah.
So can you remember or let me know what the first one is? I think it's about assessing.
Yeah, it's kind of just thinking about what you actually want to get from limiting your screen time. Because
Yeah,
there's no point doing it for just no reason. You kind of need to think about what you want to get from it in order to, like I say, tailor it to yourself and figure out what you want to do to
yeah,
make it work. Because if you have no why, you're not going to be able to come up with like a how.
exactly. And then you say, I think the next step is about taking stock and kind of saying, well,
Yeah,
what tools do you use now and how do you
yeah.
use them?
Because I think it's important to assess what you do, because sometimes we can just keep adding more and more without actually realizing how much we rely on digital technology sometimes. And so I
Yeah,
think it's really important to reassess that.
yeah. And I think you say to me, you pick my phone up, don't you, quite often? And
Yeah.
what would you say to
You've got
me?
like 50 tabs open at all times. It's insane.
That does feel a bit like my brain
Yeah.
sometimes. But there's too many apps, aren't there? You
Yeah.
quite often will be like, Mum, you just need to get rid of these apps. And I feel anxious about getting rid of them. I'm like, what if I need them again? What if I probably don't? And if I haven't used them in like
If you do need
three
them,
months?
you can always re-download them. The app
Exactly.
store's still there. It's not gonna disappear overnight.
Exactly. So you in your guide, you're taking stock, you kind of got some prompts for people to think about. And then the next stage, I think, is setting boundaries.
Yeah. I think it's important after kind of looking at what you use from, I want to say, an unbiased point of view, but I don't know if that's ever really possible. Think about what you might want to limit. Like if you notice you're spending 8 to 10 hours a day on your phone,
Maybe that's the thing.
maybe that's an issue.
Yeah. If we're binge watching Netflix
Yeah.
or a similar streaming
And I
platform.
think that also goes hand in hand with stuff that you don't feel like you need to limit. So,
Yeah.
for example, watching TV, most of the time when I watch TV, it's with my family, it's with you. So it's not really impacting my day-to-day life.
Mm.
So I've never really felt the need to limit that and say, oh no, I don't want to watch TV.
Yeah. There are days when you say I'm TV'd out. I don't want
Yeah,
to do that. But I think also that TV aspect or the streaming and watching something as a group, as a family, with other people,
yeah.
it is
It
that more.
can be communal. It can be something that kind of brings you together. Like,
Yeah,
I know Dad and I talk a lot about, movies that we watch or TV shows or games that we're interested in.
yeah,
But also, on the other hand, you can also just sit in bed all day and binge watch Netflix for weeks and weeks, and that's a different matter.
that's a different way of looking at it, isn't it? Step 4 you've got is find replacements.
Yeah. You're gonna have a lot of free time if you do what I did. Obviously, you might not go as drastic as that, but if you do, you need to find ways to actually fill that time, or else you're gonna get a bit bored,
Bored?
burnt out, and you're just gonna go back to it because you can't think of any other way to spend your time.
Yeah, it's
So it's
almost
just explore the things that you're interested in, try new stuff.
find some new habits
Yeah, get
and
into a new
replace stuff.
routine,
Yeah, and
and it'll just become second nature.
it becomes a lot easier, doesn't it? I
Yeah,
think it becomes a lot easier after like 7 days, and then got a 30-day like
yeah,
reflection period. So you in your guide that you've got that 30 days where people can just make some notes about how you feel, what.
yeah. Because I think it's important to reflect, because otherwise you might be doing something that's completely pointless or that's making it harder than it needs to be. And so I think it's important to figure out what you're feeling about it and
Yeah,
really
is it
think
making you
about
feel
it.
better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if
I
it is, it also gives you a testimony to kind of
keep going.
keep going.
That motivation, that
Yeah.
evidence base to say I can keep going. This is good for us. This is good for me. I think that's one of your next steps, which is like that reflection of how has your outlook changed towards your digital life?
Yeah.
Is it better? Is it, how do you feel about this stuff? And then the next one, reintroduce. So you're not saying you have to get rid of everything forever.
Yeah. Because that's just not realistic in today's world.
It's about bringing stuff back in that you might need or that you might want,
Yeah.
and maybe setting yourself some longer term boundaries. And when you notice yourself slip back into those habits, kind of going, I need to check myself and maybe stop playing Candy Crush for as long as I do each
Yeah.
day. I know you're giggling.
I
I
feel
know
like
you're laughing.
that's a self call out.
Yeah, it's definitely a self call out. And I notice it myself. I notice it, and I do go on social media, and I'm of that age where it's like it's Facebook and it's LinkedIn. And I notice myself and feel myself, and I kind of go, why am I even looking at this? Why am I watching it? What difference is it going to make if I don't watch this right now?
Yeah, I think that's what I used to think as well when I first started doing it, because it's just a case of why am I watching all these other people's lives when I should actually be
Living my
living
own
my
life.
own?
Yeah. So yeah. Oh, and I want to say thank you. This
You're
conversation
welcome.
This conversation has been fantastic, and I know when we started, it felt a bit awkward,
Yeah,
a bit, oh, okay. You can find, I think we found as if we've gone through the conversation, it's got a bit easier,
a bit.
and
It still feels a bit awkward, like practically eating this microphone, but
but we're getting the voice, we're getting the sound, so we're
hopefully.
doing. Owen is actually looking at me with a face that says, "This better be recording because I don't want to do this again." No, I think your take and your perspective has been absolutely fantastic. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be able to talk to you like this, because I know that these kind of things aren't easy for you to do,
Yeah.
and it's not natural. And thank you, just absolutely. You can find Owen's guide, Simplify Your Digital Life. You can find it on Inclusive Change. We'll put some links in any of the things and places that you're watching this. But if you go to inclusivechange.co.uk, I think on the front page you'll see a click to a free download. So you can actually download this for free right now. We feel it's actually got a lot of value, but we want people to hear and see and take part in it, and hopefully we might do some more stuff with it in the future. But definitely right now, go and have a look on inclusivechange.co.uk, and you'll find Simplify Your Digital Life in a PDF guide for you to download. I've been talking to Owen. I'm going to be talking about Owen's story at the Castle Conference, where we'll be talking all about digital wellbeing for young people. That conference is going to be held at Leigh Court in Bristol on the 25th of April 2024. Tickets for delegates are just £9. We have got some incredible speakers, some incredible exhibitors. Please, please, please do go and have a look. You can find out more at ICAW, that's ICAW-CIC.com. You can also find out more through digital safety, which is ds-cic.com. We would love to see you at the conference. Just get on board, come and meet us, and you may even get to meet Owen at the conference
Wow.
too.
Meet and
Thank
greet,
you.
but it's not.
A meet and greet, but definitely not.
Yeah, don't
No.
actually meet and greet me.
Yeah, if you are coming to the conference, Owen prefers to not shake hands. That's at least one thing.
Yeah,
And absolutely do not go in for a hug.
yeah.
That's the second thing. Thank you
Hopefully.
very much. Thank you for listening. Take care.